I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my soul. The moment I realized that my wife truly believed I'd never leave, that I was meant to stay trapped in a life of quiet compromise, only for fate to reveal a turning point so profound that now she's stuck in the past while I'm busy living my best life. In those first 100 heartbeats, every hope I had nurtured, every silent sacrifice I'd made for the sake of our union, shattered into a whirlwind of disbelief, betrayal, and an unyielding resolve to reclaim my freedom. Her smug assurances that I was stuck here forever echoed in my mind as a challenge I vowed to overcome by building a future that was entirely my own. For years, I had built my life around the belief that stability was worth any sacrifice. I worked long hours, saved every spare penny, and devoted countless moments to maintaining the home and life we'd shared. I prided myself on being the steady, reliable partner, the man who could weather any storm, even if it meant setting aside my own desires for the sake of our family's security. I trusted her implicitly. I believed that our commitment was unbreakable. But somewhere along the way, subtle cracks appeared. I began to notice her drifting away, quiet sighs when she thought I wasn't listening, secretive phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, and a growing distance in her eyes. I ignored those signs at first, chalking them up to stress and the mundane pressures of life. Yet the seed of doubt had been sown. The pivotal moment came unexpectedly on a cool autumn evening. We were celebrating what was supposed to be a joyous milestone, a birthday dinner at our favorite restaurant with close friends and family. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with the clink of glasses and the soft murmur of heartfelt conversation. I had dressed in my best suit, eager to share in the warmth of celebration and perhaps even a quiet affirmation of our love. But as the night wore on, I began to notice that while everyone else laughed and congratulated her on her successes, I was met with polite smiles and barely concealed glances that hinted I was an afterthought. When the conversation shifted, she casually remarked in front of everyone, "I just can't imagine you ever leaving this place," as though my staying put was the ultimate proof of my devotion. The words struck me with a force I had never felt before, so certain, so damning. It wasn't just that she expected me to remain, it was that she believed my life was meant to be confined to the same worn routine, that I was incapable of seeking something better. In that moment, my mind raced with conflicting emotions, bitterness, heartbreak, and an ember of defiance that refused to be snuffed out. I realized that if she truly believed I was destined to remain stuck, then perhaps it was time to prove her wrong. That dinner, with its lavish decor and cheerful chatter, became the turning point of my life. I sat there, lost in the cacophony of superficial pleasantries, while inside, a storm of determination was brewing. I resolved that I would no longer be defined by her limitations or by the expectations of a life that had outlived its promise. Instead, I would forge a new path, a journey of reinvention and bold ambition that would catapult me into a future of my own making. That night, as I returned home alone under a sky studded with indifferent stars, I felt the weight of her words like a shackle on my soul. I locked the door behind me, stepped into the silence of our once shared home, and allowed myself to process the truth that had been so painfully revealed. I opened my journal, the repository of my innermost thoughts and long-held dreams, and began to write. Every word was a catharsis, a declaration that I would not let her belief that I was stuck determine my destiny. I wrote about the many sacrifices I had made, the long nights spent in pursuit of stability, and the quiet ambitions that had been buried beneath the daily grind. In that solitary, ink-stained moment, I promised myself that I would break free from the chains of expectation and set forth on a journey to rediscover my true potential. The next morning, I awoke with a clarity that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I reviewed my journal entries from that night, feeling the raw power of each word, and I began to craft a plan for change. I realized that my future was not predetermined by the constraints of a life that had grown stagnant and suffocating. I had built skills, saved resources, and amassed a wealth of untapped potential that I had long neglected. I decided then that I would explore new horizons, professionally, financially, and personally. I set small, measurable goals for the day, update my resume, research opportunities in industries that excited me, and even schedule a meeting with a trusted mentor who had always encouraged me to dream bigger. Each action, though seemingly minor, was a deliberate step toward a future where I would no longer be defined by the belief that I was meant to stay put. As the days turned into weeks, I began to see the promise of change unfolding before me. I networked with professionals who shared my passion for innovation, attended workshops that challenged my old assumptions, and started to build a new narrative, a narrative in which my worth was measured by my ability to adapt, grow, and thrive. I rediscovered passions that had lain dormant. I dusted off long-forgotten hobbies and allowed myself to dream of adventures that spanned beyond the familiar confines of our past life. Each evening, I would review the progress I had made, each small victory reinforcing the fact that I was charting my own course, a course that was uniquely mine. That painful dinner had become more than a moment of heartbreak. It was the spark that ignited a revolution within me. I was determined to rewrite my story, to turn every insult and every dismissive glance into the fuel for my resurgence. I knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, that doubts might still creep in, but I also knew that I possessed a strength I had never fully acknowledged until that moment of excruciating clarity. And so, with a pen in hand and an unyielding spirit, I stepped into a new dawn, ready to reclaim my life and prove that I was destined for so much more than the confines of a past defined by betrayal. In the days following that fateful night, when the shock of her dismissal still echoed in every quiet moment, I found myself at a crossroads, a time when I was forced to confront the reality of my life with an unflinching gaze. The pain of being confined in a marriage that I thought was unbreakable had given way to a seething determination to reclaim every bit of my self-worth. I spent endless hours wandering through the silent corridors of our home, now stripped of its former warmth, each room whispering memories of a shared past that I no longer wished to relive. Instead of drowning in sorrow, I began meticulously planning my next steps, a blueprint for transformation that would catapult me into a life of freedom, joy, and fulfillment, far beyond the limitations I had once accepted. I threw myself into the process of introspection, determined to understand the layers of regret and resentment that had built up over the years. Every night, I would settle in my study with a journal and a pen, the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminating pages that soon filled with raw, unfiltered emotions. I wrote about the countless hours I had devoted to building a life together, a life that, in my mind, was supposed to be unbreakable, and how, in a single moment, it had all unraveled. I questioned every sacrifice I had made, every dream I had quietly nurtured, and slowly, the act of writing became a catharsis. Through my words, I began to see that the betrayal was not a reflection of my worth, but rather an impetus for reinvention. Each entry was a declaration. I would not be defined by the confines of a failed relationship but would harness this heartbreak as the fuel for my renaissance. Determined to rebuild my professional identity, I began to re-engage with my work on an entirely new level. I immersed myself in long hours at the office, not as an escape but as a deliberate strategy to prove to myself, and to the world, that I was more than capable of rising above the past. I took on projects that challenged the limits of my creativity, spearheading initiatives that demanded innovation and strategic insight. Every presentation I delivered became a statement of intent, a way of announcing that I was no longer content to be the quiet partner in someone else's narrative. I led meetings with an intensity that resonated with colleagues, turning each boardroom session into a battleground where my ideas and my vision were defended with relentless passion. The once dismissive glances I had endured were gradually replaced by nods of approval and respect, as the unmistakable signs of my resurgence began to shine through. With every contract secured and every milestone celebrated, I rebuilt my reputation piece by piece, ensuring that my professional achievements would stand as a monument to my resilience. Parallel to my professional ascent, I took deliberate steps to secure my financial future. I arranged meetings with trusted financial advisors, poring over spreadsheets and reviewing our joint accounts with a critical eye. I discovered that the savings we had painstakingly built, intended to be a symbol of our shared dreams, now belonged entirely to me. This revelation, though painful, served as a turning point. I set out to diversify my investments, exploring new opportunities that promised both growth and stability. Every financial decision was made with precision and care, reinforcing the fact that I was taking full control of my destiny. As I restructured my portfolio, I felt an empowering shift. Each upward tick on my financial statements was not just a number, but a tangible affirmation that I was reclaiming the power to secure a future defined by my own terms. I began saving aggressively, investing in stocks, bonds, and even considering a small business venture that had long captured my imagination. With each calculated move, I transformed the sting of betrayal into a robust financial strategy that promised independence and the means to build the life I had always envisioned. Beyond the numbers and board meetings, the transformation took root in the everyday rituals that began to redefine my inner world. Mornings became sacred, a time for renewal as I rose before the sun and embarked on long, solitary runs. The cool morning air and the rhythmic pounding of my feet on the pavement served as a meditative release, a constant reminder that every step forward was a step away from the pain and toward a future where I was free. Those runs were more than exercise, they were a daily reaffirmation that I was rebuilding myself from the inside out. I learned to embrace the quiet solitude of those early hours, where my thoughts could wander freely and my heart could mend without interference. In the evenings I found solace in creative pursuits. I returned to writing, an art form that had once been my refuge, and began to compose long, introspective essays about my journey. Each word was a brushstroke painting a portrait of resilience and rebirth, a narrative that transformed every ounce of heartbreak into the language of hope. I started a private blog where I shared these reflections with a small, supportive community. The outpouring of empathy and encouragement from readers who had experienced similar struggles was both healing and inspiring. Their messages affirmed that my journey, though uniquely mine, was part of a universal tapestry of overcoming adversity. Through writing, I discovered that vulnerability was a strength, and that by sharing my story I could help others reclaim their own worth. Simultaneously, I rekindled relationships with those who had always believed in me, reaching out to old friends and forging new bonds with individuals who valued authenticity over pretense. In intimate gatherings over coffee or during long walks through familiar neighborhoods, we exchanged stories of hardship and healing. These interactions, filled with raw honesty and mutual support, became the backbone of my emotional recovery. I realized that true friendship was not measured by the accolades of success, but by the willingness to stand by someone through life's darkest hours. Their encouragement, their unwavering faith in my potential, reminded me that I was never truly alone in my struggle. Together, we laughed, we cried, and we celebrated small victories, each shared moment a stepping stone toward rebuilding a life defined by resilience and hope. Amid all these changes, I began to set ambitious goals for my future. I crafted a detailed plan for my personal and professional growth, outlining every step necessary to build a life that reflected my newfound independence. I envisioned a career where I would not only excel but also lead, where my innovative ideas and unwavering determination would open doors to opportunities one had once only dreamed of. I enrolled in advanced courses, attended leadership seminars, and networked with professionals who could help me sharpen my skills. Each goal, each new challenge, was a conscious decision to break free from the confines of a past that had tried to diminish me. I understood that the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles, but I was ready to face them with a heart fortified by the lessons of betrayal and a mind brimming with possibility. Every day, as I balanced long hours at work with moments of introspection and creative expression, I felt the tide of transformation steadily rising within me. The once painful memories of exclusion and rejection gradually faded into a backdrop of determination, a testament to the unyielding spirit that had carried me through the darkest moments. I began to see my future not as a continuation of past failures, but as a blank canvas waiting to be painted with bold, vibrant colors of success and joy. With every new project completed, every financial milestone reached, I felt that I was reclaiming not just my independence but the very essence of who I was meant to be, a man defined not by the mistakes of others, but by his own relentless drive to rise, rebuild, and thrive. Now, as I stand at the pinnacle of a life entirely reimagined, I can hardly believe the journey that has brought me here. A journey that began with the bitter taste of betrayal and culminated in a reality where I am living my best life, while she remains mired in the consequences of her choices. Every morning, I wake with the sunrise streaming through my windows, each ray a vivid reminder of the freedom I now embrace. I reflect on the long, painful nights when I thought I would never have the strength to leave, when the weight of her dismissive words and the comfort of familiar routines held me captive. But those days are far behind me now. The transformation was neither instantaneous nor easy. It was a slow, deliberate process of shedding old identities and forging a new self, one defined by independence, creativity, and unshakable self-worth. In the early days after she left, I had been overwhelmed by a mixture of disbelief and profound sorrow. The very notion that my wife, who had once proclaimed that I would never leave, had chosen to abandon our shared life was a blow I never expected. I remember the first night vividly. I sat in the quiet of our empty home, surrounded by memories and silent echoes of laughter once shared, and I felt as if the future I had planned for us was crumbling before my eyes. I questioned every moment, every sacrifice, wondering where I had gone wrong or if I had simply been living a life that was never truly mine. But that night, as the minutes stretched into hours, something shifted within me. In the midst of despair, a spark of defiance ignited. I resolved that I would no longer allow her choices to dictate my worth or my destiny. I began to see my solitude not as an end, but as the blank canvas upon which I could finally paint the life I always deserved. That decision marked the beginning of a profound transformation. I dove into my work with an intensity that surprised even me. Every late night at the office, every early morning meeting, became a battleground where I fought for my vision. I took on projects that once intimidated me, pushing myself beyond what I believed were my limits. Slowly but steadily, I began to earn the respect of my colleagues and superiors, who started to see me as a leader in my own right. Each new success, every contract signed, every innovative idea embraced, served as a stepping stone away from the life I had known, and toward a future that was uniquely mine. I learned to celebrate each small victory as evidence that my abilities were not defined by my past or by her scornful words. My professional identity evolved from that of a quiet, overlooked partner into a dynamic force, one whose vision and determination could not be ignored. At the same time, I redefined my financial future. I revisited every record, every investment we had once made together, and restructured my finances with the meticulous care of someone who had lost everything and was determined to rebuild it all. I diversified my portfolio, consulted with top financial advisors, and set up robust systems to protect the wealth I had painstakingly accumulated. I made deliberate, calculated moves to secure my assets, turning what could have been a painful setback into a foundation for new opportunities. Every upward tick in my bank balance became a tangible reminder that I was in control, that my future was mine to shape without the shadow of her betrayal. The financial independence I achieved was not just about dollars and cents, it was a declaration of self-respect, a bold statement that I was capable of thriving even when others sought to diminish my worth. The process of healing, however, extended far beyond the realms of work and money. Emotionally, I embarked on an arduous journey of self-discovery and forgiveness. I sought solace in therapy, where I was able to unpack the deep layers of hurt and betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable. In those sessions, I learned that forgiveness was not an act of condoning her actions, but rather a way of freeing myself from the relentless grip of anger and bitterness. I discovered that the pain I had endured was a powerful teacher, one that had shown me the true value of my own resilience. Each breakthrough in understanding, each moment of vulnerability shared with my therapist, added a new layer to my healing process, transforming the scars of the past into badges of honor that testified to my ability to overcome. I learned to see every setback as a stepping stone, every tear as evidence of my strength, and every painful memory as a necessary chapter in the story of my rebirth. As my inner wounds began to mend, I found that my personal relationships started to transform as well. I reconnected with old friends who had always believed in me, and I forged new bonds with people who valued authenticity and resilience over superficial appearances. Our gatherings, simple dinners, long walks, heartfelt conversations over coffee, became a source of renewal and support. In the quiet camaraderie of these moments, I realized that my worth was not defined by the judgments of someone who had walked away, but by the genuine connections I nurtured with those who truly cared. I learned that love, in its truest form, is a mutual exchange of respect and support, and that true happiness comes from within, not from external validation. Every smile, every encouraging word from a friend, reinforced the idea that I was capable of building a life that was both fulfilling and deeply enriching. With every step forward, I embraced new adventures that celebrated my newfound independence. I started traveling more, exploring destinations that had long been on my bucket list. Each journey was a revelation, a chance to immerse myself in different cultures, to savor new experiences, and to see the world through the lens of someone who was free. I booked spontaneous trips, sometimes venturing off alone and sometimes with newfound friends who shared my passion for discovery. The freedom of travel taught me that the world was vast and filled with endless possibilities. Whether I was wandering through ancient ruins, sampling exotic cuisines in bustling markets, or simply watching the sunset over a tranquil sea, I felt a deep sense of empowerment. I was not defined by the past, but by the vibrant tapestry of experiences that I was now weaving, a tapestry that was rich with adventure, self-reliance, and unbridled joy. As my life began to flourish on all these fronts, I found moments of profound introspection that brought everything into sharper focus. I often sat quietly in the early hours of the morning, the soft glow of dawn illuminating my thoughts, and reflected on the path that had led me here. I recalled the crushing weight of despair, the bitter sting of exclusion, and the relentless inner battles I had fought to reclaim my sense of self. And with every recollection, I felt an overwhelming gratitude for the journey, even the painful parts, for they had forced me to confront my own limitations and, ultimately, to transcend them. I learned that the most transformative experiences often come from the darkest moments, and that every setback can be the precursor to an extraordinary comeback. I began to write my story, not just for myself, but for anyone who might one day find themselves trapped by betrayal or defined by someone else's narrow expectations. I poured every raw emotion into essays, journal entries, and even the outlines of a book that I dreamed would one day serve as a guide for others seeking to reclaim their power. Sharing my experiences became a way to turn my pain into a source of inspiration, a testament to the unyielding spirit that drives us all to rise above adversity. The act of writing itself was cathartic, transforming my sorrow into a narrative of hope, resilience, and unwavering determination. In the feedback from readers, strangers who recognized their own struggles in my words, I found not just validation, but a sense of community that spanned across borders and backgrounds. My professional life, too, continued its steady ascent. With every successful project, every accolade, I built a reputation as a visionary, a man who had turned heartbreak into a launchpad for innovation. I took on leadership roles that challenged the status quo and introduced ideas that revolutionized the way we approached our work. Boardrooms that had once felt like arenas of quiet dismissal now echoed with my confident voice and bold proposals. I was invited to speak at industry events, where I shared not only my professional strategies but also the deeply personal journey that had reshaped my identity. Each speech, each panel discussion, was a public declaration that I was no longer defined by the betrayal of a failed relationship. I was a leader, a pioneer, and a living testament to the power of reinvention. The respect and admiration I garnered in these settings were not merely professional milestones, they were the crowning achievements of a life reclaimed from the depths of despair. As I advanced on every front, I made it a point to nurture the very essence of who I was becoming. I immersed myself in new hobbies, learning to play a musical instrument, exploring photography, even taking up yoga. These pursuits were more than mere distractions. They were avenues for self-expression and meditation, allowing me to reconnect with my inner self in ways I had never experienced before. Each note I played, each snapshot captured, and every yoga session was a moment of clarity, a reminder that life's beauty lies not in perfection, but in the relentless pursuit of growth and joy. I began to appreciate the small, quiet victories, the steady beat of my heart during a challenging run, the gentle smile of a friend who recognized my efforts, the simple pleasure of a well-cooked meal, and I learned to celebrate those moments as signs of a life that was rich, meaningful, and entirely my own. In those reflective hours, I also revisited the idea of forgiveness. I came to understand that forgiving her was not about excusing what she had done, but about liberating myself from the perpetual grip of bitterness. I realized that every resentful thought, every moment spent reliving the hurt, was a chain holding me back from fully embracing the life I was building. Through therapy and quiet contemplation, I gradually learned to let go of the anger that had once defined my every waking moment. I discovered that forgiveness was a gift I gave myself, a way to unburden my soul and allow new light to fill the void. And with each step toward forgiveness, I felt a deep sense of liberation, a lightness of being that made every new day a canvas of endless possibilities. By the time I looked back over the span of those turbulent months, I saw a mosaic of experiences, a tapestry woven from moments of deep pain and soaring triumph. I had transformed every tear, every moment of despair, into a stepping stone toward a future where I was in complete control. I had rebuilt my career, reestablished my financial security, and, most importantly, rediscovered a profound sense of self-worth that was mine alone. My journey from betrayal to empowerment had not been linear or easy, but it had forged within me an unbreakable resolve, a certainty that I was capable of crafting a life defined by my own ambitions, my own dreams, and my own unwavering resilience. As I prepare to step into this promising future, I carry with me the lessons of every setback, every hard-won victory, and every quiet moment of introspection. I am no longer the man who once felt invisible and diminished by the actions of another. I am a man reborn, a man who has turned every painful memory into a badge of honor, every scar into a symbol of his strength. I now live with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that the true measure of success lies not in the validation of others, but in the unwavering belief in oneself. And so, with gratitude for the past and hope for the future, I step boldly into tomorrow, ready to embrace all the opportunities that await and to continue writing the extraordinary story of my life.